Hey, you guys. This is Chappie from Task Force 70. Welcome to episode 2 of our podcast. As you guys know, the purpose of the podcast is to get information out about small agencies to the general public. There's a large amount. I know you're surprised that there's a large amount of disinformation and just wrongness, as the president would say, big wrongly, about especially small town law enforcement. Most people don't know that all of these small towns exist. So it's why Task Force 70 exists, is to train and support and grow those small departments. So welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking with RJ Phelps. Jay is a lieutenant with one of the small agencies that we serve, uh, and also a first sergeant in the National Guard. So he has a ton of experience, many decades of both law enforcement and military experience. One of the things we're going to be focusing on today is the kind of support that agencies his size need, not only from Task Force 70, but from their communities and from the general public, from the American people, but also how in reality it works best to integrate military experience with law enforcement experience, especially in small agencies. So we're going to go into some level of detail on that. We're also going to talk about some other topics, and we've got a question from a Task Force 70 supporter who has questions, which you guys can also submit. So we picked a good one, and we will get to answering it. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jay to the show. Hey, Jay, how are you?
Hey, it's another day in the war. Another day in the war, brother.
I hear you. I hear you. So Jay is a lieutenant at a small police agency in West Tennessee. Jay and I, just for full disclosure, Jay and I have known each other for decades. We worked together on a bunch of different projects, training projects, et cetera, and we've worked at the same department and been SWAT team leaders together on the same department in the past. So if it looks like Jay and I know each other and we're asking shorthand questions and things like that, that's why. Yes, we know each other. Yes, we're good friends. And yes, we've worked together professionally as well. So I just wanted to get that out of the way so that there's no trolling uh, based around that, which there will be anyway. So we don't care. So the good news is we don't read your comments anyway. So, anyhow, Jay, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the American public, and because some folks, especially in the sniper community, the police sniper community, know who you are, but the general public doesn't. So, do you mind giving us a short bio of yourself?
So, originally from Bowling Green, Kentucky, born and
Hmm.
raised there, and then turned 18 and joined the Marine Corps. Spent 15 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, 5 years in reserves, and then had an opportunity while I was in the Marine Corps to go through the Army Sniper School. And so at that point, instead of retiring, I switched over to the Tennessee Army National Guard. First 6 years there, as a sniper section leader, and then at that point got promoted. I know it's hard to believe, but they promoted, and then at that point I reclassed MPs and got promoted there. So currently a first sergeant and out of Lexington, Tennessee, and
Hmm.
been in law enforcement since January of '05. I started
Hmm.
out in Kentucky and then migrated down to the one place I said I'd never moved to, Tennessee, and
Hmm.
here I am, close to 15 years later.
Yep, exactly. Now you're a lieutenant in charge of training and patrol, right? In a small department.
So, yes, patrol training, also little special operation division that we created that kind of
Hmm.
encompasses investigations, canine training, just a gamut of all that. And then I do a little sidebar with the patrol.
Hmm. So, and that's a good. It's the primary reason I wanted you on the show, not only because you're a handsome man, but also your experience, and you've worked in a couple of small agencies and you've worked in big agencies. You and I have very similar experiences in that way, um, and trying to integrate as many capabilities into a small agency as possible is a necessity. We'll get into explaining why communities need that. But also, you have a unique perspective in that you're doing that right now. You have a small department. How many guys are on the agency right now?
So we have 12 full time, and then roughly five that are part time.
How many full time? You cut off.
12.
Okay. So on the small agency scale, you're on the upper end of, but you're still a smaller agency. What's the population of the jurisdiction?
So it's roughly 12,000 that live
Hmm.
there. And then we have a lot of, between the commerce and everything, probably
Hmm.
around 20 to 30 that come in during the day or during the work and then leave.
Hmm. So the work population is about that then.
Yes, sir.
So, and being within your agency, you're still responsible for protecting them and responding to the crimes that occur, whether they
Absolutely
live there or not. And that's
correct.
something that the public tends to or can overlook, and that looking at the census population of a jurisdiction drives our funding, but it doesn't drive our mission set. What drives our mission set is the day population in any jurisdiction. So that's good information for people to have. Um, Good. Well, I want to start off talking about start big and move small, right? So I'd like to talk at first about the kind of funding challenges that agencies are facing of your size. So funding drives training, and training is never the first priority, right?
Correct.
So training is usually down towards the bottom, despite what the public thinks. So do you mind give us an idea of imagine, and we're not going to hold you to your numbers. We're looking for some generalized situational awareness in a because your agency is very demonstrative of smaller agencies in the country, right? So, uh, population mix, industry, commercial, and residential. It's very diminutive of the populations that your size agency manages and deals with. So, of your budget, what do you think? And I understand you're not the chief. I know I'm giving you lots of caveats, but that's more for the audience. Of your budget that comes, about how much of that do you think? We know none of it comes directly from the federal government, but how much do you think comes from the federal government, either through direct funding of the state, which then passes through to the city, or through grant funded initiatives that are always very specific that are funded by the federal government?
I'd say right now, grant wise, we do not have any grants right now.
Hmm.
We're in the process of applying for a couple.
Hmm.
But training is basically based, the amount for our training is based off our department budget. And we get
Hmm.
roughly, I think, Russ, I looked at it last week, matter of fact, we get roughly $5,000 a year that's spent specifically for training.
Uh-huh.
So that includes association fees. Um, if I want to send the guys to courses,
Hmm.
stuff like that. So I've asked for more for next year because I know it sounds weird, but
Hmm.
when you have 12, people say, well, it's only 12, but you got to think some of these courses, if they're running $500 a piece, you
Hmm.
know, now I'm at with 12 officers at the 500 a piece. I'm already at 6,000. So even if I just
Hmm.
sent one class, I've shot my whole budget for the year. So
Yep.
that's where we got to be creative. But as far as federal, I don't know that any of ours comes straight from the city budget.
Hmm.
Set up just a little different because we have what's called a camera fund,
Hmm.
and so some of our stuff comes out of that.
I gotcha. So just so the public can understand how small that budget is, that is your training budget. That's the training you're going to send somebody out to. That's the ammo you need to buy to do your own training, on top of the 205 other skills that a patrolman needs to possess, right?
Correct.
So for all those people, 12 full time and five part time ish, you have to train all those people with $5,000.
Correct.
And And that's actually, in my experience, and you have the same kind of experience, you and I teach agencies all over the country. Um, that is actually a pretty good budget for a small department. There's a lot of departments that don't have a training
You have
budget
that.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they want to send somebody to a level of training in a core competency for patrol, for instance, that comes out of hide. If they want to send a guy to a uh, patrol level forensics collection course, which every patrolman needs, right? Every patrolman needs to be able to collect forensic evidence. They don't learn it in the academy, and that's $1,000 course,
Correct.
pretty much anywhere. So if you want to get every patrol guy to learn how to collect fingerprints, collect blood evidence, collect DNA evidence that's actually discoverable in court, things like that requires specialized training, and that training money just doesn't exist for the vast majority of agencies. So that's not to harp on it, but that's one of the reasons that the foundation was founded, is to identify the things that we know how to do, the big five that the foundation focuses on, and and try to provide not only the training but teach those guys how to be mentors to spread that around. So following up or continuing on that point of discussion of small training budgets, I know you do this in your agency because you're there, but has it been your experience, like it's been mine, that providing hip pocket training where everybody in the department's responsible for being a subject matter expert in several things, right? In small departments, how many agencies do you think are utilizing that knowledge that exists in their agency to train guys every day to spend 5 or 10 minutes while they're working on patrol, assuming they work with another person? Because a lot of agencies are, there's one guy on the road. Um, do you think we could be doing a better job, or how can we support guys to get thinking about they should be teaching somebody something every day in their agency? Do you think that's a good, uh, it's not even a stopgap, but a method to kind of spread wisdom and knowledge across your own department at least?
Yeah. So one of the things I found at the agency that I'm at with now,
Hmm.
um, as a training officer, I went to every one of my guys and asked them, "Hey, what kind of schools have you been to? What kind of training have you received already?" And
Hmm.
majority of them haven't received anything. So,
Right.
like I had one that wants to go into less lethal training because
Hmm.
going with OC and baton and all that. So,
Hmm.
at that point, um, I went out and found a class for
Hmm.
him to go to. So, field training. I'll give you a prime example. Field training officer program.
Hmm.
Nobody had been through an FTO course, so if I have new officers, which when I got here, I had five come in the door after me. I had
Oof.
no field training officer, so I had to spend 3 days just to teach a field training officer program, so I can have
Hmm.
them certified to teach. So, uh, if you take the time and effort to go out and find out what the officers are involved in, and give them opportunities to teach that, oh,
Hmm.
it's a gold mine because now
Hmm.
they come back, they're excited to actually have an opportunity to be a mentor, to be a coach, to be, something other than just a
Hmm.
patrolman. They get an opportunity to teach those things. And then it's up on us as leaders to provide them that opportunities to be able to say, hey, when you're not going call to call, you know, team
Hmm.
up with these guys on your shift and go do 15, 20 minutes of training. Um,
Hmm.
Even some basic stuff. So I think it's pertinent and very valuable because, as you know, with the larger agencies, you can have an individual per skill set or per discipline.
Hmm.
But when you get in the smaller agencies, you're not going to have that, and
Hmm.
you may have one guy teaching all of that, but if he holds on to that knowledge to himself because
Right.
he wants to be the grand master, you're just
Hmm.
failing your agency. You got to take that time out to teach those guys, but when you have opportunity to send them to training that will give them that, you're bringing back just more than a knowledge. You're bringing back, like I said, they're now mentors, they're now
Hmm.
coaches, and it makes them better officers, which then that's like a good disease that spreads through the agency then.
Right. Exactly. I love that because that's really how it works. when we were starting, especially when I was starting, um, at least where I started, the instructional level, I really lucked out in my generational placement, right? When I started, all the boomers were starting to retire already. And the credential capture was a real thing back then. Like it was, especially in a large agency, guys create these rice bowls that they don't want to let anybody become an instructor in
Right.
because that's their grift, right? That's how they only work 20 hours a week on patrols because they're spending the other 20 writing curriculum or, you know how that grift goes.
Yeah.
The small agencies don't have that benefit. They don't have that kind of staffing to do that. So that leads to credential capturing from the other direction where one guy is interested in teaching, so he controls is the wrong word. He manages the instructor level tasks for everything. And you can't be an expert at all of it. In the foundation, we teach 5 core competencies for patrol guys because those are the 5 that we're best at teaching, right? And could I teach a guy how to investigate a property theft? Sure, but I'd be like, well, what do I need to cover first? How about this? And then, and that's how a lot of that small agency training gets bad, if it
Right.
occurs at all. So, spreading that around and then trying to create one of the things that we're focusing on encouraging is regionalizing amongst the small agencies as much as they can. Like you're coming to this class, encourage somebody in another agency to go be a DV investigator, like even though they're a patrolman kind of thing, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
It does.
So that just creating there's lots of guys who want to teach. It's the the gatekeeping that keeps them out or the funding that keeps them out. Those are the two things. One of those we can't do anything about, gatekeeping, but we can do something about providing them some resources and encouraging other organizations to kind of do the same. So, uh, knowing this, or this, your community, I assume, does not know how little budget you're doing so much with. Would that be a fair statement?
So I, I think a lot of the of society and your communities, they look at, so hyper. We're just going to throw a number out there. So let's say our
Hmm.
agency is, and I may be way off, but let's say run
Hmm.
350,000 a year runs my agency, just hypothetically. They
Say
see
that
that
again.
if for example, if $350,000 was my annual
Hmm.
budget, and that's
Right.
just I really don't know what it is.
Hmm.
They see that and they're like, why do you need $350,000? And then when you start
Right.
breaking it down, well, you got patrol cars, you got uniforms and all this.
Hmm.
They have a perception, I believe, that they think you're already trained. You know,
Hmm.
it's like when I go into the mayor, I'm like, hey, I'm going to send 2 or 3 guys to say a level 1 SWAT school, and
Hmm.
he's like, aren't they already trained? What is
Right.
it? Why do they need more training? And then so I go into, the caveat is we all go to the police academy,
Hmm.
and the military is kind of bad about this. So
Hmm.
when soldiers go to MP school,
Hmm.
there's no advanced MP school after that. So you're
Hmm.
basically an MP at that basic level the whole time. It's like, so 10 years from now, I'm still, the only thing I've learned is the same thing I learned 10 years ago. So
Hmm.
they don't have a clue on what I believe they don't have a clue on what it takes to fund any agency in order to have them properly trained.
Hmm.
But as soon as you get that first phone call of the complaints, it'd be like, hey,
Hmm.
your officer did this. And I'd be like, well, if we had more training opportunities, I could fix that.
Hmm.
And then, of course, that costs money then.
Hmm. It does. And that's a political challenge that will probably always be around in small agencies. The challenge is that 70% of the departments in the United States are these small agencies. So it's not a small problem, right? One of the questions that I answered, I did a video on my answer. It was a great question from somebody who was had questions about the foundation, and the question was, I already pay my taxes. Why would I donate money to train cops I'm already paying to train? And I tried explaining in the answer that, first of all, you're dealing with the filtering of taxes where you pay a dollar in and 60% of it is eaten up by administering them receiving that dollar just on the federal side. And let's say they do the right thing and they send all 40% that's left down to the state. Well, the state steps on that and they take 20% of that.
Mhm.
So by the time, and then it's dispersed amongst all the departments, but it's only dispersed in the things that the legislature thinks is important. So in the legislature, every state legislature, awesome, good to go. You have no clue what
Mhm.
small agencies need. They know what big agencies need, and it's part of the reason that they've started listening to large agencies because of the political fallout of not doing so. So the large agency training capability has risen dramatically over the last 10 years. You and I have both been teaching long enough to have seen it before big departments had good training programs and were really focusing on it. And it has improved. You may have a different experience, but my experience is in large agencies there isn't really a training problem anymore. Like there's still small things they can be moving around, but the training capability has gotten so much better because it was focused on, right? And
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
we just haven't been focused on our side. So anyway, to answer that question, uh, the my tax dollars pay for it. Why would I give you money to do it as well? Well, your tax dollars aren't doing that. And this is your agency is a great example of that.
Yeah.
You guys, that $5,000 training budget that you do have, none of it comes from people's federal taxes. It comes from
Mhm.
local sales tax. It comes from the property taxes of the city. Like that's where all that money comes from. So that is in some ways a great thing. The control of local jurisdictions and what follows is my opinion, but should be the smaller the agency, the better, because it means the more focused the citizens are who should control generally what that agency does within the bounds of the Constitution. I think that's a great thing,
Yes.
but it also leads to a misunderstanding on those citizens' part. They pay for the Ugandan special forces and they expect Delta Force to show up. Like, but they're only willing to pay for the Ugandan special forces.
Right.
Like, where they buy them a bowl of rice a day and give them 5 rounds of AK ammo every year, right? So that's what they're paying for, but they expect Navy SEAL Delta Ninja Lerps to show up when
Mhm.
something goes
Yeah.
wrong. Well, you can't, both things can't exist. I'm not advocating that local jurisdictions spend $1 million a year on training, but there has to be some outside support that is not attached to the federal government to
Cool.
help those guys.
Yes.
So um, I didn't mean to go off on a tirade on that, but it brought up a great point about aren't my taxes already paying for that? And the answer is no, they're
No.
not. So they're not. So which leads me to kind of a sequitur for there was a big, and there still is in some, luckily the percentage of the population is shrinking that thinks this, but there was a large defund the police movement
Mhm.
um, amongst the left in the United States. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I disagree, but agreeing or disagreeing. But they don't have the vision of something I see as a serious problem. And the smaller the department, the more serious the problem is. The I've I'm working on a thesis that the police have already been defunded. And it's kind of a function of the challenge that your agency faces, where all of your budget is out of hide, which, is fine. But you guys have been defunded. All of our agencies have, the small agencies, through inflation. Uh, no small agency budget has expanded uh, in keeping with inflation, if that makes sense. So
Right.
the $5,000 that you were budgeted probably years ago, I would imagine. I bet if you look through the line item history of that budget item, probably hasn't changed in 10 or 15 years. Those dollars meant more and could go farther than they can today.
Right.
So through that governmental function, inflation has eaten away the capabilities that can strengthen, that those dollars can strengthen. So, um, are there things that don't have to do with that money that you would suggest small agencies to do kind of in general to build capability to serve their citizens without having money to do so? What are some of the suggestions you would have for those kind of agencies?
So kind of like what we do, I reach out
Hmm.
to the, we got a state tactical officer association. So I'll reach out to them and find out what training they're offering. And at that point, I look for free, to be honest with you, I look for a lot of free training so I can save the money. So when we get some really
Hmm.
good training opportunities
Hmm.
that I know we probably wouldn't get, I can send that money towards that. So,
Right.
and then we'll do a lot of in-house training. I reach out
Hmm.
to what's unique about our area, our specific location is we have a brand new high school here, um,
Hmm.
middle school and an elementary, brand new. And our city limits ends at another city limits, which is Milan. And
Hmm.
then 300 yards to the right of us is Madison
Hmm.
County. So if something were to happen here, we get a lot of times tasked to go over to Milan, to
Hmm.
Trenton, Humboldt, and even into Jackson to assist, and then vice versa. So
Hmm.
we try to reach out to other agencies and say, hey, we're doing this training, we're going to set up this in-house training, or can we set it up at your place, and basically bring everybody together to try to do training opportunities. Like I said, I looked throughout the year on some really big time or big ticket courses that I can send people to, and
Hmm.
that's why I try to save the money for those.
Hmm.
And then the other stuff I try to do either locally or in-house or with another agency.
Hmm. Good. So it's kind of the philosophy of maximize what we are capable of while we are also looking to grow that capability from the outside knowledge, right? So that's good. That's something that we've obviously encouraged for a long time, but trying to help people focus on that. Less time on Instagram trying to figure out what cool guy training you want to go to, and more time on, like, I've got 206 patrol skills that all my guys need to know. What are we missing the most? What do we deal with the less? Who can I find to get something for free to send somebody to? Because we're always trying to, or we should be, not gatekeeping, but spread the mentorship and training capability as far as the demographic and my organization allows for, right? Everybody should be teaching something.
And the one thing the community, and we've seen this, and I've kind of been part of one at one point. So the first thing that happens if an officer goes to court on a
Hmm.
case, especially if it's a officer involved shooting or anything to do
Hmm.
with any force, use of force,
Hmm.
one of the very first questions that the defense is going to ask is, talk to me about your training.
Hmm.
What have you been trained in? Was you trained to do this, and so forth? So regardless if we're a one-man agency or a 10,000 man agency, every time we go to court, we're getting asked that same question. They don't
Hmm.
ever negate and say, "Oh, you're a small agency. We ain't got to worry about your training, so we ain't gonna worry about this lawsuit. We ain't gonna worry about these charges."
Right.
It. So when you put an officer on the stand in any kind of capacity, especially if he's coming from my agency, I want to be able
Hmm.
to have him sitting on that stand and saying, "Yes, I was trained. Here's
Hmm.
how I was trained. Here's my documentation." Not,
Right.
yeah, we couldn't afford to send him to training on how to use less
Hmm.
lethal because we just didn't have the money. That's not going to save that officer. And then, of
Right.
course, that affects family, friends, everything. So then the
Well, and
backdrop is
it affects the community too. The community's paying
absolutely
for that. Like,
yes,
you got 12,000 taxpayers in your jurisdiction. It's transparent to them because they just pay their property tax, but they're paying for that.
yes.
Like, you pay now or you pay later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's going to be Medina police officer in the headline
Hmm.
news. And then everybody
Right.
go, hey, And if you're from a dime, it's like, hey, did you hear about that officer? And then it's like,
Hmm.
um, how do we help? How do we? It's going to happen, but how can we decrease the issues with that? Well,
Hmm.
training, and
Hmm.
so you've got to always constantly be training. I have the chief kind of joke, and my old sheriff, you may know him,
Hmm.
used to ask, he would go, "Why do you need to go to training? Why are you going to train? You were just a training 2 months ago." And it's like you don't
Hmm.
understand. We can't stop because as
Hmm.
society has evolved, we have to evolve as trainers and
Hmm.
as officers, and that how
Hmm.
we evolve through current training.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the big aspect, especially with the organization, is to provide that training that may one day either save our lives or even save us in a trial.
Right. Or most importantly, in the priority life, save a citizen or a child.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And not just in use of force topics, right? So I know you look after a lot of EMA type tasks as well with the emergency response to
Mhm.
natural disasters and things like that. How many officers, and this isn't like a direct question, but for the audience, think about all the officers that work in your local jurisdiction. How many of them do you think got swift water training for rescue?
Oh, I'd say right now, absolutely none.
Exactly. And what's the most likely large scale issue, right? It's not
Well,
something the foundation covers, but there's hundreds of things like that. That's one of the reasons that constant training is so important. The the piece that we may dive into this a little bit about the militarization of the police misunderstanding, but why do people so the if the public think logically, which they don't, but if they wonder why, a ODA from USASOC can successfully conduct a hostage rescue in an emergency, right? That
mhm,
was not an accident. That nothing is an accident. The military does special operations so well because all they do is focus on mission and training. That's
mhm,
it. Law enforcement doesn't have that capability because our mission is always ongoing. We are
yeah,
always doing something, right? So we have used that as an excuse for decades now. And I mean, us, myself included, like law enforcement executive class, have used as an excuse. Well, we're short staffed. We don't have the budget. Maybe next year we'll get to some of that training. Well, we need to be doing something every day to drive that ball down the field. Otherwise, we're not doing our citizens the service that they think we're doing. Like, and the public can't be expected to understand that, well, as a taxpayer, I paid to send that guy through the police academy and I pay to train him 40 hours a year for continuing education. He shoots 50 rounds a year. I expect him to show up, kick the door down, and shoot the hostage taker who's holding me in a chokehold 100% of the time,
yeah.
right? That's what they expect.
It
And
is.
and they're not necessarily wrong to make that expectation within reason. It's on us to, instead of cussing at them in our coffee break, or smack talking the dumbass citizens in our jurisdiction, and yes, we heard some of you guys saying that. I'm looking at you specifically, not you, Jay, somebody out in the public. Um, it's not the citizens' fault. Like they don't know. They
Right.
just don't know. Um, and it's not that it's better than it was, but it's not as good in small agencies as it was 30 years ago.
No.
And part of that's demographic. Part of it is the job market, which is driven by the demographics and population. Guys, it was pretty rare when you and I started. You and I were both unique in the beginnings of our career in that we changed agencies for personal reasons, right? That was pretty rare back in the day. When a
Yes.
guy went to work somewhere, even at a small agency, they never left. Like, and
The
that
lifers.
not, yeah. And that was that led to a greater level of experience, which leads to greater levels of confidence. Greater levels of confidence lead to fewer bad decisions, especially in force circumstances where force is necessary to be used. The more confident an officer is, the less likely he is to use unjustified force the more likely he is to use force early enough that it's effective without going overboard. So that's something that is functionally gone in a lot of small departments because of the turnover, which is something we have no control over.
No.
So good. I appreciate your perspective on that quite a bit. So getting into your experience level in the world of, and I might be shifting gears a little too fast for some of the audience, but they'll keep up. Let's talk about precision rifle work in patrol.
Okay.
Um, we've written several white papers between the two of us and some other folks that we know on the application of precision rifle work or designated marksman work in patrol. And it's still a challenge. Part of that's driven by the reason it came to my mind is it's driven by the demographics of the modern workforce that we're managing. The guys aren't at departments long enough to build the police experience necessary to be able to add a layer of specialized force above that. They haven't mastered the fundamental force use structure and force tools and their constitutional application in the correct circumstance. Once they reach a level of journeyman competency in those, then we can move on to other things. But I really think it's a capabilities gap. More necessary the smaller the department is the ability to deliver precision force at some distance, 100 meters or less, generally. Um, as you know, we try to, because of the demographic issue, our executive leadership tries to weigh the advantages or try to weigh into the advantages of equipment over training because if they invest in training today, it's gone tomorrow. So I understand that. But there is still some equipment need for delivery of precision force at some distance, right?
Yes.
How do you think we can how do you think we can build a program? Let's say I'm the training corporal in, Dirty Ashtray, New Mexico, and we've got 4 officers and me, and I'm responsible for training these guys. And I've seen the need that we need to be able to do some level of precision in shooting. We obviously don't have the budget to actually make snipers, but what are some ways or what are some things that I should be thinking about when I'm thinking about developing a precision patrol rifle program? Not just a patrol rifle program, but precision patrol rifle.
Well, I'd say the first thing you got to go out and do some reconnaissance or some research on what kind of rifle you're going to want to use and barrel length and so forth. And then what are they going to be the add-ons, like add a light onto it? Are you going to add optics? Or are you going to keep your front and rear sights? So research and get a good rifle system. At that point, then you've got to understand what level of officers you're dealing with. So, for example, I just taught a class 2 weeks ago, and I had 3 of the guys in there didn't even know what the bolt release mechanism was, and barely. I mean, just so I had to back up and basically, here's a rifle, here's the fundamentals, how to take it apart, and how to basically as if they've never touched a rifle before in their life. And so when you look at your training, you've got to set up a training plan that literally takes them from ground zero with a rifle. And you're not going to get that done in a day. And basically set up a program and a plan where you have training to get them trained with that rifle and then training to get them qualified with that rifle. There's two different elements there. And I'm not in a lot of agencies, because they have a minimum training time or training budget, will basically, hey, here's the rifle, here's how you shoot, let's go out and shoot a couple times, now let's qualify. And officers may qualify. I mean, we know really some of these course fires ain't that hard to do. So now you got an untrained officer carrying a patrol rifle. So I think you got to really teach them the rifle system, all the fundamentals. At that point, take them through a course, several courses prior to make sure they understand the handling and shooting that weapon. And then I would even almost once a quarter, if you can do it more than that, once or twice a month, whatever, continuously follow up training, because you may have some officers that mastered it, former military guys that look at this, we're like, oh, this is easy. And then, like I said, I've had a couple that had never touched a rifle before. And so basically a training program that is going to continue. It's never ending story. And it's just like you would do with your handgun. And then now you got to look at how do I encompass my AR platform in with my duty weapon, my patrol, my handgun. So, like we do transition drills to go from the rifle to the pistol in case they have malfunction or run out of ammo. So, it's just a continuous program. And so you got to have a budget for ammo, because officers shouldn't be using their own ammo. And they should be using department issued. It should be, if you're going to allow them to use a rifle other than your department issued, it needs to be certified and verified. So I think you should have a really strict training program, and then use the trainer. Luckily, I've been blessed that I've been through that program, so I could set one up. If you may have a corporal or sergeant you walk up to, like, you're the training guy for this new AR platform. He may not know the first thing about it. So he's going to be able to have resources to reach out to associations or like a task force 70, say, hey, you know what? I need training in order to come back and train these guys. So it's a continuous program, as you know. And it's if the officer's not confident in that rifle system, you know what I do. They're not going to pull that weapon out of the car. They're not going to be confident. And then, do I really want an officer that isn't confident handling that weapon system on a hot call?
Right.
And those are some things I have to take into my thought process when I'm training.
Right. And the implied in the title is of precision patrol rifle is all the things you described are in place, and then they can be taught to do things like identify targets, conduct a basic reconnaissance, understand.
It's being able to, know decision or distance between which one, and manipulate their optic if they have something other than optic, actually have a scope. So to be able to specifically go from a patrol rifle level up to a designated marksman type thing. Now you're talking even more advanced training, and you want somebody that really has a love for that, a passion for that. But now you're talking into different levels of training that, once again, time and money with that.
So you're saying, and the reason I'm bringing this up is a challenge that I've faced on the training side for a long time. So you're saying that if I put a 1-to-8 LVPO on my rifle and I zero it and I put it in my car, I'm not a designated marksman? Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely, you are not.
Okay? Exactly.
Let me phrase it. Hold on. I know you may have the title, but you don't have the experience to back it up. You may go down to Walmart and get the designated marksman T-shirt, but that doesn't make you a designated marksman. And so, yes, you can have all the gear and equipment. You can be Gucci'd out, tier 1 level head, but that doesn't know how to use it. And use it correctly and know when to use that.
So in my experience and my opinion, judgment is the number one capability need, then training, and then equipment.
Absolutely.
So if you would agree, I know you do because you and I are friends, but building someone's judgment first, then building their physical ability, and always aiming it at that judgment ability, then backfill with the equipment. And by then, most guys aren't going to want whatever a small agency is going to issue them anyway. So it will solve some of your budget problems too.
Yes.
Because they're not going to want whatever you can afford to buy them is not what they want. They want, and this is a whole nother philosophical philosophical challenge of having an entire generation of chiefs of police who've been through the FBI National Academy, but having something issued by the police department is not a liability reduction action. That's why they do it. They want everybody carrying department-owned equipment, whatever. It's fine, but it's not nearly as important as people think it is.
I agree.
If an officer wants to, if he feels more confident with or wants to use something, assuming it's not just junk, like something he saw on Instagram from somebody that he likes and told him to buy this Ching Chang Chong 1-to-4 LVPO nonsense. As long as it's not that kind of equipment, as long as something that's been vetted outside of your department as reliable enough and precise enough to do the job, let them use it. If you need to adjust the policy, I'd strongly suggest people adjust the policy. So,
Yeah, I actually wrote our policy, and so what I put in there was, here's the optics we're giving you, and here's this. If you want to add anything onto that, you got to bring it in. Let us, like you said, make sure it's good equipment and it's been validated and it's going to serve its purpose. And at that point, we sign off and let them, and then they got to go qualify with that gear they've added onto the weapon system.
Yep. So, this is a question I've gotten a couple times since the last time I published a white paper on this that you peer reviewed on the precision patrol rifle concept. How often, in your expert opinion, should somebody have to qualify with a precision patrol rifle program or system? How often should that person have to qualify, not only on the liability side, but just the confidence side that they can provide on demand a qualification ability, right? How often should that be?
So I'm gonna probably hurt a lot of people's feelings here, but
Right.
see, like with a precision rifle, I have every single month I go out because you're talking weather changes, humidity changes, temperature changes. That weapon's been in your vehicle and knocked around probably. So at least once a month you should be qualifying. If you can't afford to do that, or you can't, at least once a quarter, because all you're doing is validating that weapon system. And you get a hot call and all of a sudden you pull that weapon out. You want to know that, hey, you know what? I just qualified with it. I know what it's up to. Not, man, I ain't pulled this weapon out in a year. And the dynamics of that system has changed. And so ask everybody, how long does it actually take to go out and do a qualification? Okay.
Yeah, it's not long.
You go through, get your whatever, maybe an hour max you're going to spend there. Okay. Time you loading, cleaning, all that. So do you not have an hour a month to go out and do a qualification? And then that way you're not only keeping up with your gun and all that, but you're also working on your mechanics, keeping yourself up to date. So now, once again, if I get that lawsuit, I can go in and say, you know what, every single month I've qualified with this weapon system. And so for me, minimum once a quarter, but if not, once a month.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well. I'm a weirdo because I think any use of force tool should be constantly qualified. Anything that projects force onto a U.S. citizen, the operator of that tool should be qualifying it at least once a quarter, preferably once a month. Like it costs very little compared to what a department is paying now to shoot 50 rounds a year, which is the national average, is 50 rounds a year. There are departments in the United States, and I won't call them out, that qualify one 25 round qualification every 3 years.
That's horrific.
Those are those departments out in the US. And one of them in particular that I know, or I know of, they do it because they don't have a pot to piss in. They don't have any money. Their guys are making $12 an hour and they're doing it for the love of the game. Like they want to be cops, they want to serve their local jurisdiction. Most of those kids are shooting on their own anyway, but it's not a credential capture problem to make people qualify more. It is a it builds confidence. It gives your citizens a better service when force is necessary. And also, if you're talking to your citizenry about how much you're training, not just in shooting, but in anything, it builds their confidence that they are less likely, unless horrible decisions are made, citizens of small communities, especially, are far more likely to support their officers instinctually the more they know about how that department is training their guys.
Right.
The more confident the citizenry will be when they see the social media post about how you beat up some poor guy because he was a DUI and he resisted you, and you beat him up because he was actively resisting arrest. You're far more likely to get the benefit of the doubt long enough for the facts to come out, because that's really what it's about in modern communications. Public communications is all about dwell time of benefit of the doubt. Like, the facts will come out at some point. You want to try to develop the kind of trust with your community that they will give you that dwell time to investigate it fully, make sure it's okay to release the information, and then you release all the facts, and then they can make a judgment on how they think you did. Because as much cops want to say, and a lot of cops think this, doesn't matter what the citizens think, I work for the government. That's not how this whole thing works.
Right.
That's not how the Constitution works. You are you are surrendering to the statist mentality that the public work for you. That is not the case. So, especially in a small agency, we need to always be thinking about who I work for. And I do work for the guy, the a-hole that I pull over. He says, I pay your salary. Well, he does. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't break the law, doesn't need a
Right.
ticket, doesn't, but I need to offer him the level of respect that an American citizen is due in the Constitution. So I'm glad you brought that up. So Jay, I'd like to next kind of move on to something that you have some unique experience in, that I don't, which is the FBI National Academy. So in the non-FBI National Academy alumni group, cops who never went, it's viewed by a large percentage of our population that the FBI National Academy, the federal government doesn't have to federalize the police because they already have, somewhat partially through the FBI National Academy. There's some other mechanisms that the Department of Justice can use to control local law enforcement, through grant funding and direct funding and consent decrees and other ways. But it's viewed by some as a somewhat bureaucratic creep of teaching chiefs of police how to think. And you've been to the FBI National Academy, and knowing you and knowing a lot of other people who've been, it's not it's not as uh, it's not um, as negatively influential as street cops view it to be. Some street cops. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the National Academy that's run by the FBI? It's meant for law enforcement executives, and it's kind of a checkbox for a lot of people who want to be chiefs of police have to go. So, can you tell us a little bit about the FBI National Academy, what your experience was, and what kind of its actual primary function is?
So when I first kind of found out about, there was a police chief in the Humphreys County that had the opportunity to go. So I didn't know a whole lot about it. And as you know, me and yourself went through a couple of courses and done some work with a couple of the FBI SWAT team guys. So we got a little more familiarization with them. And so I had the opportunity to go. I didn't know a whole lot about it. So I had to research this before I even got there. And so I had guys that had already graduated. Matter of fact, my chief I work for now was one of the guys I reached out to. And he's like, one, it's going to be great for networking for you because you get to talk to other individuals from all over the nation. And even we had, I think, 50 different, somebody from over 50 different nations. We had representatives there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, just be careful in the classes you pick. Go to classes or pick classes that you want to go to that are going to benefit you. If not, you kind of get lost in it. So
Mm-hmm.
I picked out 6 classes that I really wanted to learn in or to grow in.
Mm-hmm.
And so 12 weeks later, I wasn't looking at it as a stepping stone to become a chief or a
Mm-hmm.
sheriff, or I looked at it as an opportunity to grow. We've been talking about training. So for me, this
Mm-hmm.
was I'm going to be receiving training at the federal level, from professors, former
Mm-hmm.
FBI senior agents that had done this stuff on the ground. And one of them was
Mm-hmm.
hostage crisis negotiations. I got to take that. And
Mm-hmm.
the professor who taught it had actually done numerous real world
Mm-hmm.
missions. And so you go there, I got to work. I got a group I was a part of there, our study group from
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, from Michigan, South Carolina. So some small agencies, some large agencies. So what I learned throughout all this was they were having the same issues out
Mm-hmm.
in California and Florida and Texas I was having here in Podunk, Tennessee, right? And
Mm-hmm.
but I got to listen to how they handled it, and we would have open discussions on, certain scenarios or cases, and be like, "We've had that case," So
Mm-hmm.
here I am hearing somebody from Philadelphia Police Department having the same case. Now, of course, we know they got a little bit more assets and more personnel, but I'm
More
handling
support resourcing.
yeah, but I'm handling it at my level without all that
Mm-hmm.
as them having all that. So um, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I didn't come back thinking that, oh, now let me go advertise to the whole world. I'm an NA grad. It
Mm-hmm.
was, I come back with the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I get this advanced training. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it'll help me in my better understanding of law enforcement, and I can even
Mm-hmm.
help out some of the younger guys. So I've always kind of joked that the NA is kind of like the Masons. People always like, oh, the
Mm-hmm.
Masons. They're a cult, right? And
Mm-hmm.
NA guys, they got to be a cult too. And it really isn't. It's if you get an opportunity to go and you're blessed to go, take advantage of that opportunity to get that training, get that advance.
Mm-hmm.
Like I walked out of there, I think, with 80 hours of college credit through another university. And we wrote papers. We had to do research. So it wasn't just they show up and it was every day, 5 days a week. You were going to either PT, going to classes, doing group physical training
Mm-hmm.
together. So when I walked out of there, I just thought, so if we go with a civilian career, I was no longer just a high school graduate. I was now
Mm-hmm.
a college grad. So I had that extra experience and knowledge to bring back. So, and I've met some other NA grads through other agencies that they think they walk on water just because they graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
You don't
no,
say.
that's not what you
Yeah.
NA grad, hey, congratulations. But same time,
Mm-hmm.
you're no different than the guy next to you that's in the trench with you that didn't go. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
I truly look at it as I was blessed to get to go. And I would go again if I had the opportunity because the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
I walked the friendships I developed,
Mm-hmm.
the networking. So now if I have a problem, I'm working a case and I got a problem, say in New York, I've got a student that I went to that NA with from New York. I can call and be like, hey, what can you help me out here with? So
Mm-hmm.
Luckily it was funded through the federals or I wouldn't have got to go because I know our agency wouldn't have paid for that. So,
yeah.
But it's like with everything else. You go through SWAT school or you go through everything you need to get certified as SWAT.
Mm-hmm.
You're trained better. Doesn't make you better. To where you go around and have this big head. You have to be trained in something to have the opportunity to bring back to somebody else. When you were growing up in law enforcement, you knew who your SWAT guys when they showed up on scene. And necessarily wasn't their gear, it's the way they carried themselves. And I think that goes back to training and goes back to the judgment. Those guys had confidence in their judgment and their decision abilities. but I think that also gets reinforced. And I know a big
Hmm.
word you love to use and you live by is validating. They have
Hmm.
validated themselves. So being able to, I think in law enforcement is never ending in learning. These guys, like, I know all of this, you need to go home. Um,
Yeah.
we need to constantly be training, whether you're a 1 year officer,
Hmm.
20 years, we need to constantly be training. That's how we make ourselves better, to make our
Hmm.
agencies better. And like you stated before, it makes our community better because
Hmm.
they're going to know what your level of experience and training is when you show up on a call. And
Hmm.
they're going to know it. They're going to, and you've seen it like I do, they'll pick out the guy that knows what he's doing,
Hmm.
or they'll take advantage of the one that doesn't know what he's doing. And
Hmm.
so,
Absolutely.
but for me to go to the NA was a blessing. And
Hmm.
to me, it's just a training opportunity to go better yourself.
Hmm.
But other than that, it isn't. It ain't a golden ticket punch. Now, some agencies require, in order to be chief or
Hmm.
assistant, they're going to look to see if you have that or not. And just like in the military, to go up to command, they're
Hmm.
going to look to see if you've had the commander's course or the
Hmm.
main college. And if you don't have that, you may not be
Hmm.
elevating there. So
Right.
um, it's got its purpose. I just think that we can't abuse what the purpose of that course is for.
Yep. It's been my experience knowing a lot of FBI guys as well that the DC FBI and District of Southern New York FBI are not the FBI that small agencies deal with.
No,
Uh,
not at all. No,
the
not at all.
vast majority of FBI guys that we deal with are cops. Like,
Hmm.
that's why they're cop. That's why they're there, is they wanted to challenge themselves to be that level of cop. Um, if you are unfortunate enough to have to participate in an incident that involves the national level FBI, then probably start dotting your I's and
Correct.
like covering your ass. But generally, dealing with actual field agents, you're going to get nothing but support. And in the smaller agencies, that's more necessary than ever. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad that you could kind of communicate that perspective well, because it's something I actually hear the more senior I get in my career, not in rank, but in time on and knowing lots of people and training with thousands of cops across the country for a long time. That's a fairly common question for guys our age in their careers that, like, do I really need to go? Like, it feels like I'm going to get captured by the bureaucracy. And I
Right.
don't, dealing with guys who graduate, I think it depends on who the guy is. If he's already a slime ball, he's going to be a slime ball when he graduates. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to change
No,
anything.
no,
So you know that guy before he went. You know what I mean?
true
So
story.
um, so uh, we're trying to cover as many of the questions that we commonly get um, as a foundation. So we're brand new as a foundation. Well, we're about a year old, but the vast majority of that time was spent building the infrastructure and the organization that's necessary to do it right, to actually serve the guys instead of grift. So we're trying to answer as many of these questions as we possibly can. Um, we kind of covered this uh, in our one of our first questions, but the general or the question I'm getting, and I've gotten it a couple times, which kind of raises the flags for me that we should probably answer it. The general question is, how many hours a year do your small department guys get versus how many do you think they should have um, on top of hip pocket training, like formalized training hours? In our state and a lot of states, the minimum continuing education requirement is 40 hours. And the vast majority of that is met online now with virtual academy or whatever the different states call it. Most post organizations or police statewide certification organizations have some version of a virtual continuing education thing, which, as you and I know, depending on the topic, that can be valuable or Most of it's not. It's just a check the box bureaucracy thing. How many hours of formal continuing education do you guys do right now versus how many you think is reasonable for a small agency to have?
So I think as a small agency, and I would almost say any agency, but small agency, as you say, we got to do our 40 hours mandated, and
Hmm.
that's usually majority of that is firearms, and then
Hmm.
EVOC training, defensive training for police, and then they'll pick a couple other things, and then, but so I do that 40. A lot of agencies make it sound like it's hard to even get that 40 in because of
Hmm.
the manpower shortage or call volume, whatever. It's difficult to get that 40 in, and
Hmm.
I'm a firm believer that it's all about how you manage that schedule. And
Hmm.
if you have the opportunity to do, I'd say triple that, quadruple that. If you get 160 hours in of training a year,
Hmm.
I think then you're where you need to be. And
Hmm.
what I do, some of the classes we do in in-service, the same old class. As soon as we start, we're already, but
Hmm.
you've got to get training outside of that. Active shooter. We know that it's like every other day you get an active shooter call, or you're what they refer to as an active shooter. But I think defensive tactics, you get into more driving, more firearms training. But if you manage the schedule wise, and then now you're coming into, well, how are we going to pay them? Overtime,
Hmm.
comp time. So how are we going to manage that? I'm actually blessed with the chief now. His number one thing is training, and it's
Hmm.
basically you set it up, we'll make it happen. And
Hmm.
so I have now at least every officer is getting 8 hours of training per week, and
Hmm.
we may have to spread that 8 hours out over some shifts, but I'll bring them in on shift. And if we got three on shift, hey, you two,
Hmm.
it's a high call or priority call coming out. This individual, we're spending the next 4 hours and we're doing training together. And so it's what you value as an agency. Do you value the opportunity to train, or is it just a
Hmm.
check box for you? And
Right.
you've seen it as well as I have. Only until there's a major incident or
Hmm.
an officer, we'll say report writing, train on report.
Hmm.
Nobody will say nothing until that one call comes in and there's a complaint, and they pull a report. Then all of a sudden now it's a problem. Well,
Right.
we've had the opportunity to train and fix this problem for how long? But we haven't, because we didn't put it as a priority.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, it's a priority. So,
Right.
if you have the opportunity to train, I would say, like I said, if you get an opportunity 4 to 8 hours a week, and if you really look at your call volume, how many times we pull up beside each other on the side of the road and spend 4 hours
Hmm.
talking, and so you
Right.
can we turn that into training opportunities.
Yep. So my experience is very similar to yours. The primary There's two primary drivers to training not being where it needs to be nationally. One of them is budget, but with trying to always base everything on what I can control with my guys is we have, a 12-hour shift. In that 12 hours, what amount of that time is actually on calls in a small town or rural department? It,
Right,
it's it's under 40%. So I have 60% of that time. And is it okay for the guys to work their side hustle online? Or could we be taking some of that time and not be lazy and get some training done?
right.
So the the I say this a lot, but it's absolutely true. The public expect ninjas to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
if you don't, that's on you. Like, yes, the department is responsible for training you, but you know, it's cheaper to bury cops than train them sometimes.
yes,
And uh, depending on what department you work for, you know, ultimately it's your responsibility and you're responsible for your teammates too. So if you're capable of teaching something, you should probably be teaching it, even if it's just car to car uh, during a downtime, right? So
absolutely.
that's good. I appreciate that answer. Jay, we appreciate your time very much. What's the one question that you wish I would have asked you? Is there one?
Oh goodness. Are the Yankees going to win today? No.
I have no idea.
So, you
I
know,
don't follow the soccer ball.
there you go. I don't blame you either. No, I see it in the military as well, and I see it
Hmm.
in law enforcement. It's,
Hmm.
I get, we call them the old heads. That's
Hmm.
we've trained this way. I've trained this way for 20 years, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, society has evolved around you. Everything else
Hmm.
has evolved. You haven't, and some
Hmm.
agencies have that mentality as well. Well, we've never done that before. Well,
Hmm.
I, I apologize if somebody's failed you before then, but
Hmm.
I think for us, it's and especially with this organization that the Task Force 70,
Hmm.
we will take advantage of every training opportunity we can get there. Um,
Hmm.
because the best thing about it is we can keep it, when I say internally, in the state. And
Uh-huh.
then if I go across the river, those guys are getting trained by Task Force 70. We're on the same sheet of music here. And it's not like I have to worry about, do they train a different way? I know how they're trained.
Hmm.
But once again, I think the military, we kind of get stagnant on training the same thing over and over again.
Hmm.
And then we got all this administrative stuff to do. That's priority, right?
Hmm.
Not the training. But then all of a
Right.
sudden, there's a real world event. We stop everything and we spend more time catching up on training.
Hmm.
Whereas if we just been training throughout, we can now just focus on the mission. And
Right.
so we kind of catch her. And I just done a paper for a class I'm in that we wait till the last minute to actually do our training. When if we were training the whole time, we actually spend that time at the end focusing on the mission. And
Hmm.
I think it's the same way in law enforcement. We wait and train, and like I said, there's variables on why we do that: funding,
Hmm.
budget, manpower, and all that. But
Hmm.
training is kind of on the back burner
Hmm.
until the last minute. But if we have that training opportunity across the board, I think it would help us out
Hmm.
better.
Good. I have one thing that kind of tickled my curiosity bone. You and I have spoken about this ad infinitum, but it's an interesting discussion. A lot of departments or guys within departments gravitate because of social media and things like that, and um, heroing stuff, draw themselves to military trainers to better improve their law enforcement skills. I think that has a ton of value at some levels, at the skill level, especially, maybe the technique. But um, do you see a challenge living in both worlds still, law enforcement world and military world? Um, are there dangers is the wrong word. Are there potential problems with focusing too much on obtaining all of your training from a military source? Um,
So you're talking two different. Um, and how's the best way to uh, let's talk about pizzas, okay? Compared
mhm.
to pizzas. All right, so you have one pizza you look at, it's got everything you can ask for: supreme pizza, deep pan, all the cheese and all that, and it's like, man, I love that pizza. That would be, everybody wants to be a tier one operator, correct? I mean, we watch
Mhm.
SEAL Team 6, we watch SF, we watch all this stuff. We're like, ooh, I'm now in SWAT. I want to look like that. I want to train like that.
Mhm.
But if I'm going to feed that pizza to my children, I probably know that that's not the right thing to feed them. They're the pepperoni and cheese over here. And
Mhm.
so the best thing about it is going to that training. Yes, it's very intense and you can learn a lot of things.
Mhm.
But what's the application of that for? SEAL
Mhm.
Team 6 is not um, serving a search warrant down on 123 Bluebird
Mhm.
Street or out
Right.
in the county. We're not going to have Delta operators rappelling down out of helos over for a search warrant, right?
Mhm.
So they have a different mission set. Training does resemble each other. Like CQB could resemble. There's a lot of foundations and fundamental aspects that resemble each other, but the end result of that is two different concepts. They have their mission sets to go do that. Us as law enforcement, we have our mission sets to go do what we do. I can't blow a door off every single house that I'm going to do a search warrant on or execute a warrant. Just go in and start spraying. I mean, there's liability galore in everything we do on the law enforcement side. Not saying it's not good training, but is it tailored to what I do as a police officer? We get an alarm call, open door. I'm not getting up 1,000% and looking like the operator going through the door. And I'm not shoot first, ask questions later type thing. I've got to go in there, and there may be innocent people in there that I've got to be looking out for. So I go to some of those military schools annually. I have to turn off my police switch. That training. Then when I come back to the police side, put that uniform on, I've got to turn off that military. That training makes me a better in my judgment decision. A little bit, like I say, intense. Some factors, but it's a different application on this side of the house. And prime example, funding. Okay, we know some schools that we can send some of our guys to. It's $1,000 a person, and now I go up to my chief and say, "Hey, I want to send 5 guys. It's going to cost $5,000 just for the class. That's not travel there, the hotel room, not the ammo, not all the prerequisite stuff, right? Oh no, so we're up to 10,000. One class for 5 individuals. He gonna look at me like, are you crazy? So that goes back to, once again, is do I want to train my guys to be tier 1 operators, or do I need to train my guys for the application of serving the citizens and serving for what we do at the agency? And not that I won't send them there to get some extra training, but that's not the focus and that's not the priority. And nothing against those courses, those groups, those training, those instructors. They know what they're doing and they're teaching. But I have to remember that's not the product I'm needing to put out here in my community. I can't validate the city council while I want 5,000 more in a budget to send to a military training organization versus a law enforcement agency. Here's going to charge me 10% of that. But I have that problem. Sometimes I have to turn that switch off and on. We're talking about 2 different playing fields, and we're not talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, or that. We're not. That's not what these law enforcement officers are doing. So I get caught up in that conundrum sometimes myself, because the guys come in, they want to go these courses, and it's like, you know what, I get it, I understand, but I got to look at how are you going to apply that within our realm. And there's no for them, it's not an application for them.
Right. I think that there's some military trainers or retired military guys, especially JSOC guys, whether on the Navy or the Army side, who really understand the assignment. Like, they know that what they can best provide is the skills side.
Correct.
And they are phenomenal at it, and they help guys understand where their standards should be. You know what I mean? Because most of us don't. Most law enforcement agencies don't hold their high standards very high because they don't want to push people out. They want to try to build them up. But having said that, I think there's a lot of value to a lot of that military type. It's not even military training; it's skills training provided by a experienced military guy. That is super valuable.
Absolutely.
But like you said, that also comes at the expense of something else in a law enforcement agency. If I'm sending 2 guys to a pistol class that's taught by a very experienced GWAT guy, if I've covered my other stuff with them, that's a valuable use of resource, right? Because they get stuff that they can bring back and pass out, and mentorship, assuming they're doing that, right? The challenge I see is much above that. We get into a very rapid separation all military tactics are built around the operational concept of rescue,
Hmm.
because rescue and assault are the same, functionally the same thing. Whether you're assaulting a target or you're rescuing someone, the tactics are functionally the same,
Correct.
right? In the law enforcement world, we live within three operational environments. We have a search operational environment, we have a seizure operational environment, and we have a rescue operational environment. So scaling something that will do all three and then depend on throttle instead of tactics um, tends to work out better for the agency and, more importantly, for the constitutional and personal freedoms of the people who live within that jurisdiction. So um, I was just interested on your take on that. You currently live in both worlds, so, and more particularly, you live within the military MP world and the public law enforcement world, and those are two different mission sets. Like
Completely.
the civilian law enforcement mission is a portion of the MP mission, but the MPs have much more different missions than a law enforcement patrolman does. So
Yeah, because
that's an interest.
yeah, because how I look at what I brought from the military to law enforcement, and what has
Hmm.
benefited me is discipline, which
Hmm.
is needed in law enforcement, attention to detail,
Hmm.
um, understanding chain of command,
Hmm.
understanding the mission. Okay, to go out and protect and serve. So there's a lot of traits that bleed over from the military to law enforcement, and you know, not as much today, but it used to be law enforcement was looked like a paramilitary
Hmm.
organization, and a lot of military comes straight over to there. You don't have that as
Hmm.
much today, um, but and those things that they were looking for was discipline,
Hmm.
attention to detail, all those little traits that you just can't
Hmm.
give somebody. They have to bring those, right. So, I,
Right.
I characterize that then into our mission sets. If you have those traits, that's what makes you better at what you do, not how I cut a corner or blow a door
Right.
or something. But those traits is what enhances that you bring from the military that enhances you in in the law enforcement. So,
Hmm.
and for me now in both realms, they go back and forth, but they blend into each other.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads to one of the things that I've been studying for a couple years now. I'm nowhere near being able to publish a paper on it, but what the public perceives as the militarization of police actually is. So the police, this is, I have not fully fleshed this out yet. That's why I'm always hesitant to talk about it. I don't think that domestic law enforcement has been militarized. I think domestic violence has been bureaucratized. It
okay.
has been turned into um, a inflexible bureaucracy more than it has into a militarization problem. What the public sees as militarization is just a modernization of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is actually bureaucratism is what happened under the pandemic, where there's law enforcement officers walking down the middle of the street shooting at people on their own front porch with pepper ball guns because they're refusing to go inside their house. That is a abuse of authority that demonstrates an over bureaucratization of law enforcement, not an over militarization of law enforcement. I think it's been very wise how a lot of departments have taken a lot of the equipment experience and taken advantage of the funding that the military provided to industry to improve protective equipment and to improve some levels of operational equipment. We should absolutely be bringing that stuff into law enforcement because it helps us make more constitutional decisions. It gives us more
Yes.
options. The more protected an officer is, the more lag time he has to make a good decision for what's best for the Constitution. Uh, so the public concern about the militarization of police, I think, would be better placed in a concern about the bureaucratization of police, as opposed to what equipment we're wearing. Like the fact that we're wearing exterior carriers for law enforcement officers is a different issue, and it's actually a positive thing for the community because it reduces medical liability, it reduces injury to officers, things like that. So
Right.
I I think that's a thinking about those problems is never an A B problem, right? But communicating that to the public is always challenging. So
Yes, it is.
that's one of the task two missions of the foundation within the think tank, the Police Policy Institute, is to really drill down on those things and give people, law enforcement officers, something to actually codify how they think about those things and communicate them to the public. So,
Right. Correct. Because the more the public understands,
mhm.
the more support you're going to get. And we find,
Yes.
especially in small towns, it's even, I
Hmm.
think, more noticeable than maybe larger cities.
Hmm.
Like in our area, everybody knows what our agency does or doesn't do. And
Hmm.
we change our routines, anything, it's noticed immediately. So we
Hmm.
keep them informed. We try to do our best to keep them informed. That makes them feel like they're involved then.
Hmm. Because
So,
they should be. It's
absolutely.
their department, which is part of the challenge or the problem of the bureaucratization is it creates barriers into something as simple as somebody walks into the lobby of the police department and they're not allowed to know what's going on with something. Well, if something isn't law enforcement sensitive for a reason, why wouldn't a citizen be able to know that?
Correct.
Like, and that's a symptom of bureaucratization, of centralizing control, and a misunderstanding of our actual priority of life. The public and citizens and victims are the priority.
Yes.
Our lives are secondary. Law. I like to say that police officers don't have rights. We have responsibilities. Citizens have
Absolutely.
rights. So, anyhow, Jay, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And we appreciate your insight and your experience, and coming on the show talking about it. Hopefully, we've educated some folks on some things, and I also appreciate your support for the foundation. For those that don't know, or this is the first time they're hearing about us, Task Force 70 exists to support the 70% of agencies that serve jurisdictions that are less than 10,000 people. So 70% of the departments out there aren't big, CSI Miami style departments where they have all the resources and all the support. The vast majority of cops in the United States work for small towns. They're working by themselves or with one other person. They're given almost no training. In the grand scheme of things, Task Force 70 exists to address that problem. We do that through two or three mission set tasks. One of them is to provide two 5-day courses. One of them is Patrol Tactical Operations course. The other is Patrol Hostage Rescue course. Over 80% of the hostage circumstances that occur in the United States are solved within 90 seconds of their discovery by a patrolman. So, and they get no training in that. So, that's the first mission set, is to provide that training here at a centralized facility, get them away from their department where they can focus. Second is the police public, or the Policy Institute. It's the centralized think tank that patrol law enforcement doesn't have right now. There is no centralized source for people to go to get well thought out and peer reviewed studies on possible policies or circumstances or challenges that are facing us in the modern day. So that's why the Institute exists. And the third is the mobile training team mission. That is for these small agencies, the smaller the better, that don't have support, don't know how to even build a training plan, much less conduct some mentorship training. The mobile training team mission is to go across the country, and kind of right seat with some of these smaller agencies and help them build their training capability and whatever mission capabilities that they just don't exist or that they don't possess. So that's the purpose of the Task Force 70 Foundation. How you can support it. We need your support. The Task Force 70 Foundation takes no taxpayer dollars at all to conduct this mission. So it relies on people like you, the watchers and listeners, who are giving us $20 a month. If you can live without that $20 a month, we can sure put it to great use with very small overhead costs. This is not a NGO. It doesn't exist to support us. It exists to support these small town agencies. You can support us by going to TF70, that's Task Force 70, or tf70.org/donate, and sign up for that. You get some benefits from that. With that sponsorship, you'll be eligible every month to win some pretty cool equipment that the industry has supported. Having seen the need for this, they are supporting us as well. So we appreciate your support, and we look forward to talking to y'all. If you have questions and comments, put them in the comments. We probably might read them, maybe. Maybe not. Depends. Um, we look forward to reading your discussion. Guys, again, you can check us out on all the socials, TF70 Foundation or Task Force 70 Foundation. If you serve one of those, you'll find us there. We'd appreciate just the level of support of liking and subscribing to this channel and to those channels, and you'll help us out. So, Jay, if you don't have anything else, we're going to go 10-8. So, thank
Outstanding.
you, everybody, and we look forward to talking to y'all soon.